in Canton, Ohio. This is Zack, and this is Roster Rescue. And I've been away for a little bit. It's been almost 2 weeks, but I am back. It is Fantasy Football Expo week in Canton, Ohio. And I have a special friend. He's going to be in Canton. He's traveling up from Orlando, Florida to come to Canton, and he's going to be at the Expo. I can't wait to see him there. But today we're going to chop up some Dynasty football. So my guest today is Troy King at T King Mode on Twitter. He's everywhere, guys. Troy, what's going on, brother?
Yo, not much, Zach. I want to appreciate you having me on, man. I'm excited to meet you and chop it up in Canton. I've been thinking about it, like especially this week, man. My day job, they're not gonna be happy with me, man. My productivity is gonna be much lower because Canton's on my mind. I'm so excited to meet you and so many other analysts and fans. So I'm ready for it, bro.
Yeah, I had Bob Lung on the show last about a week and a half ago, and me and him talked about this. And then after the show, we actually really chopped it up. And I met him actually at the Hall of Fame over the weekend. I was at the Hall of Fame game, the Steelers and the Cowboys game. And this Fantasy Expo, I was at the one in 2019, and it's over quadrupled in size.
Wow.
Like in just 1 year. And this was with the COVID situation. So we cannot wait to get this one over. It's going to be so much fun. But next year, in the future of the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, we're talking about doing it at the Hall of Fame, possibly on the Hall of Fame field. There are big plans for this expo, and it's going to be so much fun, man. Have you ever been to the Hall of Fame? Are you planning on actually seeing the museum?
I plan on it. I've never been myself, but I'm excited to. The goal is to do that. I think one of the hardest things is that there's so many people that you want to meet and see. So like trying to spread my time out as evenly as possible. That's definitely something I'm trying to do. So hopefully I have time to actually go to the Hall of Fame as well.
So can you share just a little bit some of the projects you're working on right now and how you got into the fantasy football industry?
Sure. So I'm a co-host of a couple of different things. So I am one of the co-hosts of the Football Guys Mailbag Show. So, and I'm obviously a contributor to Football Guys as well. And I write articles for Football Guys. I am also one of the co-hosts of Fantasy Football Confidential. So both of those are on Wednesdays. The Mailbag Show, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Fantasy Football Confidential is at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, I got into it. So I started last year. So last August is when I actually, got into the industry as like a writer. So I just discovered fantasy Twitter maybe last March or so, right? I thought it was only the ESPNs, the Yahoos, and I realized there was a whole subsection. So at first I was just a fan. And then I'm actually wearing the shirt for a Dynasty Happy Hour. So Tyler, the creator of Dynasty Happy Hour, he actually reached out to me in August. So I was the first site I ever wrote for. He saw me tweeting a bunch of fantasy stuff. He's like, yo, you write for anybody? I'm like, I wasn't thinking about being a writer. But he's like, yo, I think you should. So I talked to my wife. She thought I should do it. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I did that for a little bit. I also contributed to Ball Blast Football for a little. And now I've been at Football Guys for since the beginning of the year. So it's kind of a quick summary of it. And man, it's been such an awesome ride and journey.
That's a quick turnaround. We're talking in 12 months and you just seen you progress so far and met so many people. And that's what it's about. It's about meeting and networking in this industry and just talking football, talking fantasy football. And here I love to talk Dynasty. We're basically, I'm 90% Dynasty football. It's August. Of course, we're going to talk about redraft. And in week one, of course, we're going to break down who you should be starting and who you should be sitting. This is Roster Rescue. We are here to save your roster. If you're in trouble, we're here to find you help. But one of my biggest things in Dynasty is knowing when, I guess, to maybe hold them and fold them. Sometimes you have to know where your roster is going for the next season, and that's why I love Dynasty, because it brings college football together with the NFL, with fantasy football, and it's like bang, and I fell in love with it as soon as I found it. So we're going to start today's show with a little buy, sell, hold Dynasty edition, and there's going to be some hot names. It's going to be the name. It's not going to be, are you buying Patrick Mahomes? Of course, that's not the question here. It's going to be some players that their values could could sway in the next few months because of, I mean, we have some injured players on here. We have some players in trouble, some players asking for trade talks. So I think we're going to start with we're going to talk with the whale right here, the pink elephant, and it's Deshaun Watson. If you are a Deshaun Watson owner in Dynasty, what are you doing?
Man, I'm holding right now, right? So here's the thing. So we all know about the drama that's going on with him off the field, right? And one of the things that people kind of need to think about, right? And just obviously keeping it right now to a football perspective. If there's going to be any kind of punishment for him, he might be suspended for a few games, but he's not being banned from the NFL, right? Deshaun Watson is still going to be a quarterback of somebody's team for quite some time, whether it's Houston or he gets traded somewhere, right? So in Dynasty, obviously, we're looking at the short term as well as the long term. So for me, and I don't think it's a good time to sell because I think some people are wary of him. I think once he's playing, his value, I feel like once you see Deshaun Watson on the field, I believe that his value is going to go pretty much back to where it was prior to all this drama. And if you're holding him, because right now I wouldn't sell because some people are still scared and they're not valuing him, probably as you should in Dynasty, right? Just anytime you see drama, it automatically lowers people's perceived value of a particular player. Even though it's Dynasty and you're thinking long term, in the short term, people are scared off by Deshaun Watson. You don't know, right? There's a lot of unknowns. So for me, I'm waiting until things settle down a bit, right? Unless somebody doesn't care about what's going on, offers you something crazy, then sure, sell them. Or maybe this is also, on the flip side, a good time to buy. So if somebody who's panicking or you can get them at a lower price, then go ahead, because there are people who are nervous and scared about him. There's a lot of unknowns around the situation. So I'd say this is probably the cheapest he's ever going to be. So you can go ahead and put an offer, for him and buy him. But if I have him on my team, I'm not selling him. I'm going to hold him until he reaches back to, peak value.
Absolutely. You are 100% right. Do not sell. Do not sell pennies on the dollar, not even quarters on the dollar. There's not even a chance. He is a hold, and I will go buy him. He's a player that I've done a startup where he's gone in the top 15 picks in super flex drafts that are very quarterback heavy in the first round because, when you get into that tier of quarterbacks where the Justin Fields and the Trey Lance, they etch into the system a little bit of where you're ranking them, along with maybe Tua, where these players have a bunch of question marks. We know everything about Deshaun Watson on the field. Now, I'm the type of guy that, millionaires that's never been handcuffed, I'm not really worried about his criminal charges. Now, if the league wants to suspend him, which they more than likely will, then that will be a 4 to 6, 8 game suspension, possibly. But this man has not been charged on the field. I mean, he's a top 5 pick in any startup. The talent's there, the efficiency's there, and he's playing on a scrub team. He's trying to get out of there. That's the biggest question mark. Troy, what do you think is the end game for this? Because he's probably going to get suspended. We don't know if he's even going to play this season. You're not buying him for playing this season. He's 25-year-old superstar quarterback. You're buying him for the future. Where does he end up? It's not going to be in the Houston Texans uniform. I don't think so. So where do you think he ends up?
I mean, I say it's going to be between two teams, right? So the Eagles have been rumored. I'm surprised by that, but I think the team that makes most sense, honestly, would be the Broncos. I think the Broncos would make the most sense because, one, they have a good defense, and they also have good auxiliary pieces, right? So they have the receivers. You have Hamler, you have Sutton, you have Judy. And you also just got Javonte Williams, who could be your star running back. And your offensive line's improved, and obviously the QB situation is in flux. Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, none of them are going to be a franchise quarterback, right? So that's still something where if you don't trade for Deshaun Watson, you're going to draft one. So I believe that they're missing just a quality caliber player like Deshaun Watson in order to be like a playoff contender. So I feel like that team makes sense. In terms of the Eagles, I feel like they're just missing. There's just a lot of missing pieces, right? I feel like if he gets traded to the Eagles, it's just pretty much he's with the Houston Texans just in another division, right? In the NFC East. Because think of it, they don't really have that many pieces. Like they need a lot of help in a lot of different places. So, I mean, maybe just as a trade partner wise, maybe they do it, but in terms of like the best situation for him, because at this point, Deshaun Watson wants to win, right? He's racked up a whole bunch of stats and he's done this and done that. But one thing, and he's made it to the playoffs, but he's always fallen short. I think Deshaun Watson is looking for a Super Bowl, right? So I think that hopefully, and I know like he only has so much power, but I think the best destination for him would be somewhere like the Broncos.
And I think Deshaun Watson is looking for a plea bargain. If anything, he wants to get all that freak shit like in his past, in the rear view, and just play football. And he does not want to play for the Houston Texans. It's just weird timing how everything came out after he requested a trade, after he got paid. I mean, after he got his huge contract, you question the motives with people and everything and what's really going on behind the scenes. And at the end of the day, he hasn't been arrested. He hasn't been charged with a crime. So I don't see what the commissioner can really do minus a 4 to 6, maybe 8-game suspension. Now, what do the Texans want to do with them? That's another question. Yeah. What a fucking mess. And we're going to go ahead and just leave that behind us. Also, Deshaun Watson, do not sell him, guys. Go ahead and hold. Or if you can get him on the low a little bit, I would be willing to make that move because he's still a top 10 dynasty quarterback to me right now, without a doubt. So let's go on to the next player, which I was all in on last season coming out of the draft. Cam Akers out of Florida State. I bought him everywhere. My dynasty teams, I mean, they were loaded. They were ready to rock and roll. When I got the news that he tore his Achilles, I mean, I almost fell to my knees at work. I'm not even joking. It was sad. It was a sad day. And now you have to pick up the scraps. You got to put it back together. What are you doing with your teams? What are you doing with your Cam Akers shares?
Sure. You know what's funny? So yesterday, I actually discovered that back in March, I actually made a tweet about Cam Akers. I think I might have jinxed him because in my tweet, I was talking about how he's going to be an RB1. And in the tweet, I was like, oh, I probably jinxed him, right? I said that language. And then someone found the tweet and was like, oh my gosh, Troy. And I actually retweeted it. And I'm like, so I'm not saying it's my fault, but it's just talk about a horrible tweet and making me feel bad. But no, Akers, I was very high on Akers. I had him in a lot of underdog best ball. I was trying to draft him anywhere because he was set up. He was put in a really good situation to be an RB1, like he was going to have a successful year. We saw towards the back half of last year that he was really emerging in that offense and he was getting the goal line work. He was getting the opportunity just like we all wanted. So he was really looking for a very good sophomore year. And obviously the news is unfortunate. I'm hoping, next year in terms of dynasty, I believe the Rams stick with him. We'll see because a lot of people have mentioned this already, but like Marlon Mack, he's coming off of the same injury. So if he's able to, look decent, I think people are going to like equate that to, oh, maybe Cam Akers can recover similarly, right? So that's something we could look at, but I think right now he just has to focus on healing and getting back, to being an elite back. And I think that he could do it. I mean, again, I'm not a medical expert, but, we've seen, with modern medicine, I believe he could recover quickly enough. And next year, I think he could be, at least a high-end RB2 if, he's healed up and, he gets the opportunity in the offense.
And we're checking out his player profiler right now. And he came out very impressive for his weight, his size, his speed. It was a guy that I loved at Florida State, and it was a bad Florida State team. This isn't the team of, the great late Bobby Bowden Florida State teams. These were some garbage Florida State offensive lines. He was running behind it. He was still very impressive. I was very sad he did not get the workload at the start of last season, but he got it when it counted. At the end of the season in the playoffs, Cam was ready to ball. There's no doubt about it. In the right system, they got Stafford. They bring all the weapons around. They even drafted Tutu, the run reverses, Cooper Kupp's healthy, Robert Woods, and then he has this terrible injury. Now, if it was a torn ACL, I would look at it a little different. But yes, Marlon Mack will be kind of a telltale how he looks when he comes back. Very similar player in size and speed and elusiveness. Maybe not as much juice as Cam Akers ever had, but I don't think we're ever going to see the pinnacle that Cam Akers was trending towards. He might come back as an RB2. That's best case scenario. That is best case scenario. So if you want to buy, sell, or hold him. So to me, he was a sell. I'm talking I had over 50% shares of him in multiple leagues. So there's some, and I was built to win now. So I made some moves. I traded him for Ezekiel Elliott plus a couple other pieces in between, back and forth, because I was a win now team. I also, in a team I wasn't as geared. I mean, I wasn't ready to contend. I was kind of, trying to get there. I traded him for some picks, traded him for a first, a second, and a couple players, De'Ami Brown. And, I kind of just got off him for what I could get, because once the season starts, no one's going to buy Cam Akers from you. I mean, at least for those prices. I mean, there were prices I was okay with. Now, I mean, if you hold him, I would hold him, but definitely before I go buy. I don't know unless you get him for absolutely for free. These injuries do not have this particular injury does not have a great history of seeing people come back at the same standard that they were in the year before.
No, I completely agree with you. And I feel like if you sold him early, then obviously, you were kind of like a fortune teller, right? Like you did it when obviously looking at the situation now, you made the right move. But I believe right now.
Well, no, this was after the injury.
Oh, it's after. Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
See, for me, I would have gone. I personally went a little bit opposite, right? I mean, I guess in a way, if you don't think that he's ever going to get back to an elite form, then yeah, I think the right move was to sell. I personally would have just held him and not sold him because he's at his lowest point. So I'd be like, okay, like next year, let's say he got healthy and he had a couple big games. That's normally I would try to sell, right? Like it went in terms of situations like that. But obviously, I trust me, I get it, right? Because there's no guarantee that he could ever get back to his form with that kind of injury. So I understand, want to take on that risk, sell him now.
Now, the best case scenario, Troy, I think is he's an RB2. Like that's the best case scenario is he's an RB2 next year. After next year, he's going into a contract year. I don't see the Rams probably putting a lot of stock into him, to maybe re-signing him. So who knows? He might not even be on this team and after 2 years from now. So we're never going to see the ceiling that I drafted him in. So that's why I was okay selling it and just kind of going on my path of trying to win now on the teams that I had him. I'll give you an instance where I traded Cam Akers and I had Darrell Henderson. I had Dart. And I traded him for Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, and a wide receiver to be named, like a Jarvis Landry type. And I was happy with it because the team was 100% win now. I get a handcuff that's interesting with Tony Pollard, and I'm not 100% sold that Dart is going to come in there and be what Cam Akers was supposed to be. I just don't think he can stay healthy enough through the whole entire year.
No, I mean, that's fair. I completely understand. I understand the hesitation for that.
I was pretty damn happy with it. I don't know. But like I said, that was a win now team that I didn't have my first round pick last year. I was top heavy. I didn't have the depth. And it was kind of like if I just sit on Cam, the whole, my whole team would have had to change. I would have had the shift gears into trying to get some future picks. So that's enough of Cam. Terrible situation. Please get back healthy. I'm not hoping anything bad. I'm hoping his training, everything. I hope he gets back. That's just, I don't think you're ever going to see the ceiling that you drafted him with in Dynasty. So let's move on to another player that broke a lot of hearts in Dynasty and in redraft and probably a bunch of underdog drafts and best ball, and that's Michael Thomas. What are we doing with Michael Thomas in Dynasty? I'll go first, okay? I'll go first, Troy. I'll go first because I did just buy him in a couple big leagues. I mean, the big leagues, the leagues that the chat never stops. It might be $500 league for the winner, but it's more or less about beating the people in that league and being able to tell everybody that you're the winner in chat. And I made some plays. I mean, Jerry Judy for Michael Thomas. I got rid of my youth. Got Michael Thomas. I was loving it because I was win now. And I love Jerry Judy. I'm the biggest fan of him in the world. And now I'm just like, damn, MT, how did you do this to us? So he had ankle surgery, and he's missing at least the first month of the season. I think we can all agree on that. After that, we're hoping week to week he can possibly be starting for the New Orleans Saints, who desperately need an option. I mean, we're talking Marcus Callaway, and everybody's praying Troutman, Traquan Smith and Troutman. Troutman's going to be the next Jeremy Shockey, and it's getting a little ridiculous. And it's going to be a New Orleans Saints team. Drew Brees is not there, and I thought he was a tremendous buy. So now his stock has plummeted. Now everybody's talking about how old he is. Now everybody's talking about the lack of separation he gets, and he's doing a bunch of crazy shit on social media. So right now he's not a sell because you can't get jack shit for him. He's a hold for me, and a possibly just maybe go throw a dart at trying to buy him low. I still love the talent. Hopefully he comes back from that injury this season halfway through, and they need him on that offense. If he can come back halfway through the season, by the end of the year, I think we could forget all about this bullshit of the start of the season and this ankle injury and this late surgery and everything. But he's not a sell, guys. You can't sell him right now because you're going to get pennies on the dollar, and it's just not good business in Dynasty. Which way are you leaning?
He's easily a buy for me in Dynasty, but I'm not selling him. Yeah, again, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. You kind of said everything you need to say. His price is at all-time low right now. People don't want to deal with the drama. He was, again, he's hurt, and there's drama on top of it. And, he's going to be traded from a Saints offense where he was heavily targeted, obviously, with Drew Brees. Now he's up in the air that he's most likely going to get traded. Him and the Saints organization clearly having some issues. But the problem is we have no idea what his destination is going to be. Is he going to land somewhere where he's going to get heavily targeted? We have no idea. So right now, optics-wise, people are extremely low. But in Dynasty, you might as well buy. He's still an elite receiver. So wherever he goes, again, I don't see his price being any cheaper than it is now unless he just goes into like the worst situation ever. So I think, yeah, he's a buy. But if I'm holding him or buying him, but I'm 100% not selling.
It's just you're not going to get anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You just not. It's like trying to sell your car with no tires or something. You're just not going to get anything. You got to get revamped up. You got to see what he's going to come back looking like. We got to see what he's healed up like. But I would throw some darts. Maybe you can get him low if you have the depth to make it through the first 4 to 6 weeks at the wide receiver position, and you can get Michael Thomas on the low. That's a buy. Who might come in and win you a championship or get you into the playoffs and put you in position to win money. And that's what we do here. So Michael Thomas, go get him on the low. Do not sell him. He's not worthless. He's not Carson Wentz, who we're going to transition right into that. What are we doing with Carson Wentz?
So Carson Wentz, he's in a similar situation. It's like, brutal. I'll buy him, but if I buy him for the right price, I'm holding him. His value is also at a low, right? And he could come back, I think, towards the beginning of the season. So it's like he's not out like for an extended period of time. But at the same time, Carson Wentz's value is already, I would say it wasn't very high. It was already lower, but now his value is even lower than that. So yeah, you should buy him if you can get him cheap. But selling him, it's like, why would you sell him now, right? Again, like, selling injured players in general, unless he's an elite player, is not a strategy I normally like to do because you're always going to get less value for it. So there's no point in selling him. If someone's panicking about him, buy him because, some people think he's injury prone. So this might be a scared, league mate that just wants to get rid of him. So in that situation, I would take advantage of it. But there's no point in selling him when he's at a very low point right now.
Very quickly, I might fold on him. Can we just fold? Can you give him away? I mean, I'm at the point where this man is brittle, and it's facts. I mean, we're talking he didn't get smashed by a linebacker. He didn't get piled on by a defensive tackle. He was just a regular practice, as much as I know. And he's a guy that I'm out. I'm out. I mean, the Colts don't have that much stock in him, and I was waiting for it. I was waiting. The offensive line's great. Jonathan Taylor's great. Michael Pittman's possibly emerging. This man can't stay healthy. I'd get something. I'd like to get a super flex first. I would like to, maybe 2023. Try to gear if your league allows that. I'm selling, man. I can't put any stock. I can't buy any stock in him. Get what you can. Get a position player. I'd rather have Jared Goff right now. I'd rather have almost any other quarterback right now. See what you can do. See what you can make happen. Or try to hold, and then as soon as he gets healthy, I mean, the day he gets healthy, try to sell that man. So here's another guy. He's not injured. He's not injured, but Daniel Jones from the Giants is a player that is, I mean, what are we doing with him? Last year, he was kind of a hot name. People thought he was going to emerge after kind of a nice little rookie season, and it just turned into turnover heaven, and that's not a good place to be as an NFL quarterback. So what are you doing with Daniel Jones? Because this team has done everything they can possibly do to set him up to succeed, and you have to be a believer right now. So this is kind of a pinpoint position for Daniel Jones. If you ever want to buy him, it's right now. But if he fails, this might be the position that he's worth the most. So if he completely shits the bed right now, he's not going to be worth anything. Or is he going to ascend to be a better prospect that is going to be worth more than his perceived value right now? Troy, which route are you going?
So I personally, look, if you want to buy Daniel Jones just to have him, I have him, I think, in one league. And all my leagues, I think I have him in one league, right? Because I'm not a huge Daniel Jones guy. And also I believe that he has to have an excellent season this year, right? I feel like he has to have like a Baker Mayfield-like bounce back for the Giants not to move on next year, right? Because the way I see it is that the Giants are going to be in the quarterback market next year, unless Daniel Jones does something, again, like eye-opening this year for them to believe in him, right? And then it's not all his fault. The offensive line has been terrible his whole career. He's had injuries to his weapons, but also he's has a million fumbles, right? All he does is fumble the ball and throw interceptions. So it's like, he hasn't given you much confidence. I like that he's mobile and he can rush the ball, but outside of that, there's not much that I'm excited for. So again, he has to have an excellent season this year or they're going to move on. So for Dynasty, his value is low because there is that uncertainty. So if you can buy him cheap, fine. If you can sell him, just because maybe it's worth selling him if you just don't believe that he's going to be a quarterback for much longer. So I'm kind of in between, right? I think it depends on how my team's set up. He's the kind of quarterback I just don't want to have to rely on, right? Like, he should be your quarterback 3 at most. Like, hopefully he's not your quarterback 2 or you're probably in trouble. That's not someone I want to rely on as a QB2. QB3, I think he's fine, but I don't have a lot of confidence in him.
I mean, it's going to be his make or break year. There's no doubt about it. That's why his value right now is so important. Like I said, he could fall off the face of the earth, or he could ascend to be possibly like a Ryan Tannehill type quarterback that in the mid-teens of quarterback, that's great. And then your super flex drafts and your teams, you need a Ryan Tannehill. You need a player like this to be your quarterback too. Not everybody's going to have Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson or Dak Prescott. Not everybody can have all these great quarterbacks. Like, you're going to need some of the mid-level guys that are consistent. That's been his issue. He's not consistent enough. And his value is kind of shit right now, but next year it could be nothing. It could be a 5th round pick. Like, obviously, if they completely move off him, he could be Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah, that's the situation. He can go either the Mitch way, or he could possibly be the Ryan Tannehill way, which obviously he had to wait. I mean, he had to go be a backup and he had to do that game. But if I'm gonna go back to these 2023 first, man. If you could get a 2023 first for him, I'd go ahead and cut bait, because it's gonna be very apparent right away. First week with this talent: Kadarius Toney, Saquon Barkley's back, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, John Ross is showing out in camp. This team has weapons. The offensive line should be a little bit better. They have a great offensive coordinator that I believe in. If he struggles week 1, week 2, man, it might be over, and it might be ugly fast because this team set themselves up to contend on offense this year because the defense really ain't that bad. The division is bad, and they have a chance to compete in this division for real. So the Daniel Jones stock is, I mean, it is fluctuating. I mean, it could move any moment. But man, that's a talented offense. Am I right around him?
Yeah, I mean, if Kenny G just got hurt. I think John Ross might have just got hurt today with a hamstring. Saquon, is coming off pup, so they got things they got to work on. But if everyone's healthy, then he has a chance to again have like that Ryan Tannehill, Baker Mayfield kind of bounce back.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Baker Mayfield because that's the exact position Baker was in last year. It really is. He had the team around him. Even though Odell got hurt, he had the running game, he had the offensive line, a better offensive line, obviously. Maybe not as many weapons. It's kind of Jarvis and Odell, and then Odell got hurt. But Baker was a great 2020 player that's in the same boat that Daniel Jones is in. So, yeah, let's get off him. I'm sick of looking at him. Go ahead and get that out of here. Daniel, you got a lot to prove, my man. So we'll do the last buy-sell hold here before we move on into some second-year standout wide receivers, which I cannot wait to get into because there's like 15 of them that could possibly pop. Ezekiel Elliott. What are we thinking about Ezekiel Elliott in Dynasty right now? This is a guy that has a ton of volume in his pretty short NFL career. He's had historic volume, historic hits. I mean, that tape, I'm a tape guy a little bit, so the tape didn't look right last year. The offensive line wasn't right, don't get me wrong. And even when Dak was there, it didn't look like the same Ezekiel Elliott that we saw before. Is he a player that you're trying to go out and buy right now? Are you trying to get off him maybe a year early before he hits that running back wall?
And here's the thing. And I feel like that's probably one of the toughest questions in Dynasty, right? Everybody wants to know the timing of when to sell, right? Because you don't want to be in a Le'Veon Bell situation. You want to be in a Todd Gurley situation. But at the same time, I think it could be, someone like Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, he's not somebody that you're trying to move. He's like, 28 now? But you're not – do you really want to move him, right? It's, in a way that if I had Zeke, if I kind of – and again, if I'm a contender, I would honestly just ride Zeke until the wheels fall off unless I got like an offer I couldn't refuse. Like some backs, like you don't necessarily have to sell them, right? Some backs is like, hey, if I'm on a contending playoff team – let me just keep him on my bench. If he falls off, okay. But again, like if you can, I don't mind selling him. Like if you can sell him and it's for a couple first or, like a first and a second or something like that, whatever you feel comfortable selling him for, I don't mind if you, want to cut bait early. But it really depends on how my team is rostered, right? If I'm trying to compete, then I want guys like Zeke on my team, right? Like there's no point in me selling. But obviously, like if your team's more in rebuild, definitely get rid of him, like get him out of there, right? Like you don't need an older back if you're like one of the bottom half teams. But if you're a contender, keep Zeke on your team, ride him until as much as possible. That's the way I would approach it.
Now I'm ready for the 2021 Ezekiel Elliott show. I mean, he's going to ball out. He's going to go hard. I mean, I hear a lot of Tony Pollard, like little yip yaps and everything, and Tony's nice. He really is. He's not the power back that Ezekiel is, and he does not have the same burst he had coming out of Ohio State. I mean, that's apparent. I don't know if he's going to get that back now. He does look good. Looks like he's trimmed some weight. He claims he's as light as he was his, I think, sophomore year at Ohio State. That will help the burst a little bit. Maybe keep his legs a little bit more fresh. They're kind of a passing team now, but Zeke has always shown he can get out in pass routes, catch the ball very good. I see him being a volume hog. This year, he's going to hog it up. So he's a player that it goes league to league. Now, guys, this is huge. You got to know your league. Now, sometimes I get in some random leagues with guys who are still drafting Ezekiel Elliott in the top 20 picks in Dynasty. And they think he's still a top 10 running back in Dynasty when I have him about 15 or 16. I have him right behind the rookies, the Javonte Williams. I think he has more value in Dynasty. So, and then I get a little, then you get some gripe, and then you're in other leagues where everybody is very youth driven. And in a startup, Ezekiel Elliott falls into more or less around the 40s and the 50s, where I think he deserves. So if you get him at the right spot and you're a win now team, yeah, he's worth giving a couple future picks, a first, a second, maybe a player, maybe a wide receiver, if you need that guy. But you need to know, you never pretend to contend in Dynasty. And that's, we preach that here. Never pretend to contend. If you are not a contender, Ezekiel Elliott's on your team, get what you can for him, because that wall's coming, guys. It might not, and I own him, so I don't want it to happen this year. I don't really want it to happen next year. After the 2022 season, that's what you need to project in Dynasty, what his value is going to be. So Ezekiel Elliott, after the 2022 season, you don't know what you're going to get. It might be a player like Melvin Gordon's value right now. We really hope it doesn't go into the Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell situation. I don't think it will, as long as he stays on this Dallas team that puts all these weapons around and has Dak Prescott. If he leaves there and maybe he goes like to the Jets or something like Le'Veon Bell did, it can fall off. It can fall off fast, baby. You know it. Running back can fall off fast. Sean Alexander, we've seen it a million times. It happens. So I don't want him dying on my team. Now, if you acquire him on the low and he helps you win a championship, you feel a little better of him dying on your team. If you get the ship, if you get the ship, you have to. Don't be pretending to contend, though. Don't ever do that. I preach that here. Ezekiel Elliott, go get him on the low, but be ready to maybe try to sell him as soon as the offseason's over. I try to rent him. Kind of, it's a lot of roster construction, like you said, Troy. I believe that 1,000%. You got to know where you're at, and you got to be ready to make moves in Dynasty. And that's what I love about it. This is why I play this. You're making moves. Okay, I'm trying to win now. Ezekiel has a great season. Maybe people forget how old he is all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden you can flip him maybe for a young back in the draft next season. Go about your business. So that's what we do here. Roster Rescue, we try to keep you making money. We try to keep your team geared for the playoffs, because once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. It's about getting there every year and not wasting some players that have a short window of value like Ezekiel Elliott. So that was buy, sell, hold, Dynasty. I want to chop it up with you about some second-year wide receivers. There's a million of them. And I'm going to leave Jerry Judy and CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson out of the conversation, because, I think they're pretty bona fide. Judy, he's ready to break out, guys. Jerry Judy was my number one buy in Dynasty in March, in April, in May, and you get the point. Jerry Judy has gotten to camp and been scorching people. It doesn't matter who's going to be the quarterback. Jerry Judy is going to scorch. He's going to ball this year. You probably missed the window to buy low. Justin Jefferson, same story. We know what he is, even with the injury. CeeDee Lamb, bona fide stud. So I want to bring up a couple guys like Darnell Mooney, Laviska Shenault, Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards. Even a couple other guys I'm not mentioning, Jalen Reagor, Ayuk, Michael Pittman. This 2020 class for wide receiver ended up being, just beautiful, along with T. Higgins. So, these guys, let's focus on maybe like the Henry Ruggs and the Jalen Reagor, Darnell Mooney. Of those three guys, who do you see, I guess, as the breakout player in the 2021 season?
Okay, so I would say there's a lot of hype around Mooney right now. I think it's well deserved. I think you know what? I'm going to go Henry Ruggs for the sole reasoning is because that I believe that Darnell Mooney, as good as I think he's going to be, he doesn't have there's no scenario where he's ever going to be the one on this team, right? Allen Robinson got that locked down. Henry Ruggs has the ability to be the number one receiver on his team. Outside, I know Waller's there, but to me, that's why I'm going to go Ruggs in this situation. Then Jalen Reagor, I think he's going to bounce back. I know he's doing a lot of injuries. He didn't have a great season last year, but I don't see him ever being the one either, right? I think Devontae Smith got that one position locked down. So kind of based off just a process of elimination, I think Ruggs got this, right? So Ruggs, the Raiders drafted him in the first round for a reason, right? The Raiders have always loved speed. That's been their history, right? They always love their speed demons. But Ruggs to me is just, I think he's a more of a receiver than just like a down the field guy, right? I think you can use him in a bunch of different ways. Just last year, he was dealing with his own injuries, and I think that really slowed him down. But I believe that this year it's going to be a priority to get him the ball, right? He's the type of dude that he has elite speed. And it's not just going to be like down the field plays. It's going to be like, short yardage plays where it's going to be yards after catch plays, right? Like he's going to get the ball, close to the line of scrimmage, and then he's going to take it, for whatever, first down and maybe even to the house, right? They're going to find creative ways to get him the ball. And he's the type of explosive player that can make that happen. So I think just because of the fact that he's the only one out of those three that I believe could be the number one wide receiver on this team, I'm going to go Ruggs.
I mean, it's hard. It really is. Now, he does have the best chance to be the number one. Jalen Reagor has Devontae Smith on the other side. Mooney has Allen Robinson, but he is on a franchise deal. Who knows he's not very happy there. Now, bringing Justin Fields, maybe he's a little bit more happy. Maybe they can get him the type of stats he wants to possibly get the contract he wants. That's not given, though. That's not given. There's no way they are franchise tagging him again. That's not happening. So I don't think there's any chance he doesn't. Like the Chicago Bears have to bring in another wide receiver. Like Mooney's not just going to be the guy. I really can't even think who's the number 3 there right now. I don't know. I guess a little brain fart. I can't even think who's the 3. So I know that Cole Kmet at tight end.
I'm not sure who's the 3 either, to be honest with you. I think that's all you need to know, right? Whoever the 3 is clearly isn't relevant enough for us to even be thinking about. So.
That's crazy. So Mooney, I mean, you want to talk about just the film. Now, he came out of college as a guy, a really skinny wide receiver, but with epic moves like lateral agility, and he had really long arms for his size. Now, he's a smaller guy, but he had really long arms which increases his catch radius, obviously. And I mean, he showed out last year, and they were missing him left and right on deep routes. I mean, there's a whole collage of routes that he beat up on Jalen Ramsey a little bit. He was beating up on some real corners. So the talent's there. Now, is he going to get the volume? So that's the question. How is this offense in Chicago going to look? I think it's a huge question mark. Andy Dalton, they're probably going to roll him out week 1, and it's going to be probably a Deshaun Watson thing in Houston when they didn't start him week 1, but they ended up bringing him in at halftime because I don't even remember who they had starting the game. It's going to be that situation. Justin Fields is going to be the quarterback of the Bears sooner than later. Mark my words, week 1, week 2, week 3. It's not going to get in October with Andy Dalton as the starting quarterback. It's just not going to happen. Matt Nagy does not have the time to wait around and wait for Justin Fields to be 1,000% ready to lead this team. It's not going to happen. He won't have a job in Chicago. So where does that lead Mooney and Allen Robinson? I think it's going to lead him down a great path compared to Andy Dalton, compared to Mitchell Trubisky. And these guys were putting up stats. I mean, Mooney at the end of last season was putting up pretty good stats that could be flex worthy week to week. So without a question, I love Mooney's talent. Of the 3, man, it's close. I mean, I have him like bang, 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 like in the 30s somewhere in my redraft rankings. It goes bang, bang, bang. It starts with Ruggs, Reagor, and then probably Mooney next. But it's very close. What do you think of a player like Laviska Shenault in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, Urban Meyer? DJ Chark is a little banged up, had a hand surgery. They bring in Marvin Jones, but they play 2 opposite positions. Travis Etienne's just going to open up the field a little bit. How do you like Shenault in the 2021 season?
I'm conflicted on Shenault. So here's the thing. So we've heard a lot of positive camp reports about Laviska Shenault, but the way that the draft went was a little bit concerning, right? So Urban Meyer, he's been open about this, saying that he wanted Kadarius Toney, right? He wanted Kadarius Toney to pretty much play that Curtis Samuel, Percy Harvin role in the offense, right? And then I believe they just drafted Travis Etienne because they couldn't get Kadarius Toney. So they got Travis Etienne, right, who to play that kind of hybrid role. But to me, I felt that Laviska Shenault was kind of perceived as that guy. Like you already had that guy in your offense. So it was weird how adamant he was to try to get another person like that, as well as, they got Travis Etienne when they already had James Robinson, who's extreme. It was great last year, which don't even get me started on that. But to me, that was a little bit of, I feel like that kind of told something. But then you hear reports in camp about, Laviska's balling out. And you can only take camp reports, so much, because there's a lot of coach speak, right? Everybody looks good in camp, so I'm hesitating, right? And I'm a DJ Chark guy. I know, even though Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be really good, rookie quarterbacks aren't always, amazing their rookie year. So I don't know how many receivers he's going to be able to support. So I think it's either going to be Shenault or Chark. I lean Chark, but it depends. If they find creative ways to use Shenault, then maybe he could ball out. I'm not as, I guess, hyped on him as some others might be.
Now you're 100% right about his stock. I mean, he's perceived very well in the dynasty, in the fantasy community in general. Like he's perceived like he's going to ball out. Everybody is a Shenault fan right now in the slot position. And you bring up a good note that the Kadarius Toney, like Urban Meyer was obsessed with him. And now like he drafted Etienne to try to do the same things. I don't know. Etienne is a great backfield runner. I wouldn't want him running too many routes like a wide receiver all the time. I don't want him as a slot guy, like playing the reverses and all that stuff. I want to see Etienne toting the rock in between the tackles and using some of his elite skills that got him drafted in the first round. Shenault was a guy I loved out of Colorado. I mean, I loved him. I compared him to Chris Godwin meets Deebo Samuel. He has the bigger body for a slot. He can do a little bit of everything. I mean, this guy played the wildcat quarterback position at Colorado, was basically the goal line back. So he can do a bunch of things. I'm interested. They didn't draft Toney, so I think Urban's going to get over that, and he's going to use the player that he has. It is kind of weird, though. Urban kind of is picking his guys. Like DJ Chark and Marvin Jones, they mirror each other. Their games, the positions they play, how they win, how they produce in the NFL, they really mirror each other. And, Kadarius Toney and Shenault, like he's kind of like that's what they do. And so it's kind of like, hey, I want these type of players, but I want to pick the guy that's going to play that role. So I'm a little iffy. I think his perceived value has gotten a little bit ahead of him to where he's not, he's not a steal, but I love the talent. I love Trevor Lawrence there. I think the offense is going to be I think it's going to be groovy. I really do. I think they're going to groove out, but they'll probably halfway through the season, I think they'll catch up to Urban a little bit. The defense, offensive line woes, they'll be lucky to win 6 games. I think it'll be entertaining. I think they'll put up some fantasy points. So Shenault's a guy I can dig, but I think he's going maybe a touch high of his actual ceiling, because there is a lot of bodies there to feed.
No, I agree. I definitely agree with that.
So, this has been a great show, man, and it goes so fast. We got so much to talk about. Hopefully I'll have you on again, maybe even before the season starts, maybe during the season. I'm going to be doing a ton of stuff. I know you do a ton of stuff, so I want to thank you again for taking time out of your day to come onto the show, man, and rap a little bit about Dynasty, man. I love it. And, TK, I want you to tell everybody where to find you one more time. I know on Twitter, on like 15 different shows. I know you on TV. I seen you. I thought I seen you doing a show with Matthew Berry one time. Was that you, or was that?
Oh no, that was me. So
yeah, you're rubbing elbows with a little bit of everybody. So I can't wait to see you in Canton this weekend. It's this weekend at the Fantasy Expo, man. So thanks again, and tell everybody where they can see you.
Of course, man. Thank you so much for having me again. This was a fun show, getting to know you and obviously talking Dynasty. Y'all can find me at T King Mode on Twitter. I'm trying to venture out, into TikTok world. I do a little stuff there, so you can find me at T King Mode on TikTok as well. But you can find me at Football Guys. I write articles there, as well as I'm one of the co-hosts of the Football Guys Mailbag Show, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, as well as I'm one of the co-hosts of Fantasy Football Confidential, which airs 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So both of those live stream. So Wednesdays, you're going to get a double dose of me. So check that out. But yeah, that's mainly it. Again, if my home base is Twitter, so you can see me acting a fool, interacting with people there. If you want to say hi, come to Twitter, just hit me up and say what's up.
Hey, a great follow for sure. I see you doing a little bit of everything on there, doing some TikToks, doing some dances, a little bit of
yeah, man.
a little bit of singing or whatever, man. You have fun, and that's what it's about, man. It's about having fun and try to build your brand. So, I'm proud of you, man. Looks like you're doing some big things, and thanks again for coming on the show. And, we're going to end it right here. So thanks a lot. I'll see everybody later.